All right, guys. Hey, welcome to the Leveled Up Health Center podcast. And as always, it's an honor and privilege to be on here with you guys. And we have another repeat guest, third time in a row. And I think you're going to be on it every single time. So I would almost consider you at this point in time, Catania, a co-host of the podcast because every week or every month that you have a chance to get up here, I want to get this time with you because it's so valuable to me. I'm sitting back and I've been exposed to a lot of conversations with you. Like we've talked quite a bit, you and the whole family. And every time I leave, I feel like I'm more aware of something that everybody should be aware of, which is just overall health. Like how do I become a healthier version of myself? And so I know if I feel that way, and I've spent a ton of time with you, I know that anybody that's plugging in each and every time as you watch this podcast, you're probably feeling the same way. So before we get into it, make sure to share this with somebody. Sometimes a simple share is just a way to show somebody you value them, because this might be the very thing that they need to hear that's going to help unlock the next level for them. And so like, subscribe, comment, let us know if you have any questions. And as we look through those comments, we'll make sure to answer them on the podcast to come. So Catania, thank you for joining again.
Thank you for having me.
It's always good to have you. And I want to jump right into a couple questions that I've got. And it was funny. You're like, hey, like, can you prepare me for this?
I know.
Like, that was like a minute and a half ago. I was like, no, I'm just going to ask you and we'll wing it. It'll be good. So,
okay.
All right. So one of the things I said is like, what are the three big reasons why most people like miss it with health, right? And one of them, it says like they wait until it hurts to care. Kind of unpack that, like from working in the health center and those kind of things and seeing different people, like, you know, what's kind of your, I guess, if I'm talking to you and you're having a conversation with me and your conversation is like, let's talk about general health. You might be okay now, but let's not wait until it hurts. Like, what's kind of the thought process behind that? And what can somebody do, the couple big things they can do to make sure that it doesn't have to hurt?
Okay. So like if I was talking to someone like just about proactive measures they could take, or why do I think they come to us when they come to us, or both?
I think maybe both. Yeah.
Okay.
I think both would be good.
I think when they come to us, there's a little bit of like desperation. Like we are fed, in our society, we're fed, and the way that our medical system is set up, there's a systematic approach to everything. So like, for example, like it seems like in our center, we treat stuff in waves, like stuff comes in waves. So, and I think that's just the way God works it, because he allows us to walk through things, I think, to help other people. But like, I've had an influx of like people with thyroid stuff going on lately. And a lot of it is like thyroid cancers. And like a doctor is very cut and dry when it comes to like thyroid. They're like, hey, you're diagnosed with this. Let's take a look at the lymphs, and then we want to remove it. And that's all the information. And so I think like with what we're taught is everything has this systematic approach. Like you feel this way, you go to this doctor, they prescribe this, you feel better, right? But then what I see is that's actually not making people feel better. It's making people a lifelong patient. And then they end up with more problems. And then they're in this like cyclical, like this toxic cycle, and then they come to us and they're like, I don't know what else I can do. I don't know where to turn because this is what I've been taught. I'm doing exactly what I've been taught, and now I'm here. Like now I'm more hurt and more damaged than I have been. And then they come see us and they're like, because they're out of, like, honestly, like a lot of it is they're out of options. I would say that is the typical person, because that's the person that's been hit with the big diagnosis and now they don't know where to turn. If I were to like talk to my friends or relatives or like people, or like just people who are generally healthy, and tell them like the importance of it. I mean, we could talk about it from like an economical standpoint where it's like, hey, like you can invest here now, so because, or else like down the line, like these are the bills you're going to be hit with. So like if, kind of not to be like clinical, but like you could look at it from that perspective. But also just quality of life too. When you get to be, hopefully everybody's shooting for 120, like when you get to be 120, like or even like 70s, 80s, 60s now, 90s, hopefully, like what kind of person do you want to be for your kids? Like, do you want to be someone who like is playing with the grandkids, who takes people out, who like is a lively person, or do you want to be like having someone like your independence stripped from you, and you're in the care of someone else, you feel like you're a burden, and all of those things. So I think it would be important to think about like what kind of life do you want to have? What kind of quality do you want to bring to other people and then bring to like society as a whole? So I think you could, honestly, there's like a lot of different ways you could approach it.
I mean, that's there's so much depth to what you just said though. Like every time I ask you a question, like you go deeper and it's better than I could even think that it's going to be, because like you answered the question, but also like provided another, like I would call like a success principle that's really applicable to everything. And that's really kind of like starting and looking at your life with like the end in mind. I think too often people don't do that. So they just kind of live, you know, what they feel today, what's going on today, what's instantly gratifying today. And they miss out on the fact that, tomorrow's going to come as well. Like, you know, there will be probably 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And what we do in the short term typically leads to a longer term benefit or consequence.
Absolutely.
And so it's either short-term pain, and then typically you might have these long-term gains as you get to 50, 60, 70.
Yeah.
Or you live in this life of like, you know, YOLO, you only live once, so I'm going to do what I feel like doing now. And this right now feels good. It's easy. It's convenient. But then you're going to live with the long-term ramifications of that. And it's kind of like comes with interest that's compounded, that just shows up in a much greater magnitude. And I think that's such a great way you illustrated. It's like how do you want to feel when you get to 70, when you get to 80? Like, what do you want that to look like? And let's not be confused and naive. Like, what we do all has a consequence, good and bad. Like, I think it's so easy to think that these small little decisions and choices we make are insignificant, or these small good decisions we make are insignificant. Both are a lie. They both add up, and it's the life that you actually are living today is a makeup of probably the small, unwise or wise decisions you made 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and so I just think it's good to sit back and say, like, the end, let's look at reverse engineering. You know, what do you want it to look like? Okay, I want it to look like this. This is a picture I can see. Well, what does that require me do today?
Right.
And let that dictate your choice and decision,
Yeah.
you know? Would you say, like, preventative costs are cheaper than the costs that you pay if you don't do preventative things?
For sure. I could like know that as a fact. I was just talking to one of my techs yesterday because we've been talking to a lot of combat athletes, and they know that they should do it, but the finances, because they're a combat athlete, and like if you don't make it big, you know, like you're putting out a lot of money for, maybe you're going to have to pursue a different career in the end. But we were looking at like the cost associated with it financially, but also like emotionally, physically, like spiritually, like those are all holes that you are going to have to like dig yourself out of. And so you end up in a certain position, and now you're pouring money, time, effort, emotion into fixing these things, right? So you have this problem that you fix, but then you fix that problem, and then you're spending more just to get back to a baseline. Like, if you just kept yourself at that baseline or above it, it's way cheaper, not even just financially, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Yeah, I would say. So we were actually just looking at some research and some cost analysis on all of that. So, because I'm a math person.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you'll appreciate this analogy, because when you're saying that, I'm thinking this. Like, I remember always sitting down with clients and breaking down like the power of an index, right? The power of an index portfolio is that when the stock market goes up, you participate in the gains. You don't get all the gains, but you participate. And maybe it's an 80% participation. So if it goes up 10%, you get 8. But when the market crashes, you lose nothing. All your gains are locked in, right? And then they say, well, my advisor says that the average though has been 12%. And there's two averages. There's an actual average and a real average. The actual average, an actual average and then just the average. The average would be the mathematics of like, okay, if I have $100,000, the market loses 50%, what do I have? 50,000, right? Mm-hmm. Well, let's just say, so you lose 50% in year one, you gain 50% year two, your average would be 0, right?
Okay, yep.
But what did your money actually do? If you go from 100 grand to 50 grand, now the next year you gain 50% on 50,000, you end up with 75,000. So you actually have a net loss of minus 25%.
Right.
So in the market, if you lose 50%, you need 100% to get back to baseline.
Yes.
It's exactly what you're talking about.
That's it.
And so, I mean, and it's one of those things where you can kind of miss it and not see it the right way.
Yeah.
Depending on who's explaining it.
Yeah.
So if an advisor says it's the average, they're telling the truth. But wouldn't you want to know what the actual average is done, which is actually how your money's performed? Right. And wouldn't you want to know, like, really what's actually taking place with your body? And that goes into, like, the second question I have. Like, it says that the other thing that most will do is they'll outsource responsibility.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like, I'm just going to outsource it and to the doctor, to this, to that.
Yeah.
And they don't really ever take an account and say, like, this is something that's pretty important, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're going to go start a business, most people will do some research. Mm-hmm. They'll maybe even get around some people, take a course, pay for a coach, like find somebody that's gone the way before them mm-hmm. to highlight and give them some feedback before mm-hmm. they just kind of take that launch because it's a big risk. Well, my argument is like, isn't your health also worth the same? You don't want to lose your business, but do you want to lose your health? So kind of talk about that, like when it comes to outsourcing responsibility and what have you seen with that and mm-hmm. and how does somebody kind of understand that that's probably not the best thing to do? It might lead to a downfall with your health down the road.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when people come to us, they're doing like a type of outsourcing, right? I think what's important is to vet who you're outsourcing to and not just take like everything at face value. We're called to do that biblically, right? That's like one of my dad's favorite sayings is like, it's to the glory of kings to search out a matter, right? And so it's important to keep it in your own hands in that you're doing the research and you're looking for the correct people and you are pursuing the right things. But to get the right people around you and to come to the correct facility too, or to the correct areas, like, your facility has like medical grade hard shell chambers, right? Someone could say, oh, I want to do hyperbarics. And so they would be looking for where to go, and they could go to a soft chamber that's not going to do anything for them, right? But so they're kind of doing, if I'm understanding correctly mm-hmm. your question, they're kind of doing like an outsourcing themselves. But I think to vet out who you're going to is super important. And that's where people go wrong, is because, again, going back to like we're so trained to be like, I have this problem, I go to a doctor, they're gonna have me take this. Well, that's kind of like outsourcing, right, as well. But they don't really think about it. They don't put any stock into it. They just go along with what's been given, and then they end up with worse problems because they didn't take the time to make sure that the people that they were handing responsibility to like knew what they were talking about, right? Not that I'm not against Western medicine, but I think where we go wrong is taking the kind of the individual's choice or taking away the options and the knowledge from the person so that they can make a wise decision.
I think you said it right. I think you're right. I think that the way I've seen it, I've come off of this, but I know like initially mm-hmm. the way I saw it, especially as I navigated everything with Parker, was like you almost like the doctors hold such a high title, so to speak, that it allows, a lot of times it leads us to just say, well, whatever they say.
Exactly.
Whatever they suggest.
Yep. And
I mean, I think for myself, it was easier to do that. But once it becomes your daughter, it's like, no, like, unless you're Jesus, and I don't think you are, bro, like I'm going to unpack everything. Yes. I'm going to vet it. I'm going to do research. I'm going to spend the time, energy, and effort. And that all led us to the place where we're at mm-hmm. now, which is why this podcast even exists. was because of that choice to say, wait, let me just really kind of unpack this and make sense of it.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, everybody watching this, you're smart. Like, you can easily understand when something doesn't make sense.
Right.
Like, you can't make sense out of nonsense.
Right.
And so a lot of times we get fed nonsense and don't unpack the nonsense because of the title, or just because we think, well, they must know. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe we should, like the scripture says, search out these matters and make sure that it makes sense to us and we're settled with it. Because the reality is, once you're settled with it and you've done it, the due diligence, you should be confident with that. And I believe that you want to step with confidence, because I think that's going to really be the faith to activate whatever that thing is. Like for us, once we kind of got connected with you guys, I mean, I had 1,000 DMs from everybody, right, about suggesting things for Parker, all with very good heart and very good intent. And I didn't discredit any of that, knowing that it was all for the right intention. But I was also very confused. And confused people do nothing. They freeze. And so once I had a conversation with you guys and I knew, like, it was well vetted, it all made sense, then I made this step forward, but it was with high confidence.
Right.
It was no doubt. It was like, it's settled. Yeah. And that allowed me to really, I believe, stand in the faith that was required and necessary for the whole overall family to really champion that healing through and have God show up the way he did to heal Parker. Yeah. So I just think that that's very, very important to do that. The last question I've got is this. I think this will be a good one. So it's about, like, the concept of looks over longevity. Okay. So, like, have you ever seen something that looks really healthy, but they're not? Because I feel like today, there's all kinds of different things you could do. You know, different stuff you could take that on the surface looks like, okay, that person is healthy. But maybe they're doing things that affect longevity just for the look.
Yeah, for sure.
So kind of unpack that.
Okay, Botox. I just was talking, one of my girlfriends been doing Botox since she was 22. And she's like, should I stop? And I was like, dude, you should have stopped yesterday. Like, we're like, looks, there is a big emphasis on looks, like, in our society. Like, women, men, everybody, like, wants to look a certain way, but, like, you can have all these muscles, right? And you're on steroids, and then like, you're damaging so many different systems in your body, and then you end up with an end result. Like, I know there's a lot of guys who are taking, like, a bunch of steroids right now, and they're famous for it. Like, my brother watches them on YouTube and stuff. And then boom, like, there's a news article or a news headline that's like, oh, this 24-year-old died from a heart attack. Like what is, was the vanity worth the end result? Probably not. Same with, like, women, like Botox, or even men. Like, I guess some men get Botox too, but Botox damages, like, sebum production. It literally stops sebum production. Nobody wants to look oily, right, on their skin, but that production is necessary for healthy skin. So it stops that production, and then the body starts to overproduce around it. So now you have an overproduction that then you're going to try to address with more Botox. But then Botox also is like, it damages the capability of angiogenesis, right? Being able to grow new capillary systems. It damages, like, cell regeneration, right? So if your skin is going to turn over, if you want to keep that elastic, that kind of elastic, no wrinkle look to your skin, if you're putting something in that's doing that will make it look that way. So it'll make you look, like, it'll freeze for, like, I think it's like 3 months or whatever. But then you end up with all these damages where you're going backwards, and now you're worse off than before. Again, was that vanity worth the end result? So you can do things that are going to make you look a certain way, but also are going to have profound effects on your system that actually are making you look a certain way because it's coming from the inside out. So like, for example, like the red light therapy or the hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So I honestly forgot the question.
That's really good because like I'm thinking like I've always kind of had that thought that like there's no like shortcut to anything. So like when you think like, oh, I got a hack, it's like, no, dude, like let the hack, like let time reveal the downside to it, right? Because sometimes it's like too early to tell. It's like it's too soon to tell. Like there's nothing now, but it's been a trend for say 2-3 months. Like let time do its work, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, shoot, if I would have known that, it's like, well, you know that there's no shortcut, so just know that, right?
Right.
So, but all right, question though.
Okay.
So the Botox, you're saying like, so if somebody does Botox for like, so for a couple years. They stop doing it. When they stop doing it, their wrinkles are going to come way quicker than they would have come just because of the different consequences, like the oil production, all that stuff that stops. So it's going to come really a lot faster. So you're going to look older more rapidly in a quick way.
Yeah.
Okay. Question though is, what if they just did Botox forever? And never stopped doing it? Like, the 82-year-old, you're like, wow, they look like they're 50 still.
Okay. So you're injecting poison into your body that is affecting your nerves' the ability to work. The body does not work isolated. You can't inject something here and it does not affect a function on the other end. So what they've found when they've done research is people who use something like that on a prolonged basis, something that is literally affecting the nerves. Yes, it has all these cosmetic downfalls, right? So, and that's why people keep doing it, because 3 months down the line, they're like, ooh,
they wait 4 months, like, oh my God, I look 80 years old.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like,
oh, I need
an
more.
emergency. I need to get in ASAP. Double down. Double down.
Yeah, exactly. So it's affecting, I think it's acetylcholine, right? So, and that's affecting the actual ability of the nerve, but then like your nerves need like they need nutrients, right? Your nerves are not supposed to be frozen. They send messages to your muscles. So what they do is they freeze it, so it's not like it's not working anymore. So it gives this illusion of, oh, I have like wrinkle-free skin, right? But used over time, you keep doing that, like you have nerves in your brain that are sending messages to your body. Like the research indicates that then it starts affecting these other nerves, and it translates to different areas of the body. And then you end up with essentially the effects of like poisoning your body. You end up with like nerve damage. You end up with it goes way beyond the skin.
Wow.
So Botox is like, we willingly inject ourselves with poison. Same with like steroids. Like we willingly inject ourselves with these poisons for what? Like for just the sake of vanity, for a short-term outcome, when I believe like you can do something long-term that's going to give you better results, and you're only going to end up with good benefit from it. Like you're gonna be that 90-year-old grandma who's like kicking the grandkids' butts, you know what I mean?
100%. Still smoking hot. You're 90 years old. Like, dang. All right, so I love that, and I love what you just said too, because I think people around here are like, well, that sucks. Like I just got to look old, And it's like, no, you just got to maybe like put a little bit more work in than the easy route, which is sitting in a chair for 3 minutes. because it does take more work. Like you got to come in and do the red light therapy bed, right? There's different things that you could do, like we've purchased for that go over your face for red light. Like we've got those now. We have them at the center available. So just different stuff like that it does take more work. Instead of it being like 5 minutes once every 3 months, maybe it's like 10 minutes once a day. But over the long period of time, like you're going to be healthier and feel great, and maybe not have these other illnesses, symptoms, and diseases that come from a longevity of putting toxicity into your body, right? Yeah. And now all of a sudden you look good and you feel good, opposed to just looking good, and then all of a sudden things are breaking down. And I think you're right, you can look even better. There's all kinds of studies that you told me about Harvard and different things like that with the collagen production. So you guys research, look it up, right? Do what we said with point 2. You you go search out the matter for yourself. But
or ask us and we'll give you information.
Yeah,
so,
lead, guide, and direct you. So thank you so much for joining again, guys. I hope this served you and served you well. I know it was good for me and served me. So let's go out there, make it a massive week. Be strong, stay steadfast, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, guys.